Our next story begins with some interesting pictures. Look at these. These are Chinese students. They've just graduated. And what do students typically do on graduation day? Well, they celebrate, among other things, but not these Chinese students. Look closely at them. They appear unhappy. One of them is lying on the ground, another is throwing her degree in the dustbin. And there are many such photographs doing the rounds of dejected-looking students. You may ask why, and we'll tell you. Why are so many Chinese students unhappy? Because they face a difficult future. Unemployment in China is at a record high. The numbers came out yesterday. We told you about them. More than 20% of the youth in China is unemployed. That's close to 6 million workers. Now add these graduates to the list. Do you know how many students are graduating this year in China? More than 11 million. They're entering a gloomy job market. I'm sure some of them will find jobs, even good ones, but not all of them. There are 6 million unemployed workers already looking for a job in the very same market, so it won't be easy, and the students know this. They've started a trend. It's called lying flat. It's a lifestyle trend. It's adopted by young Chinese workers frustrated with the daily struggles of modern life. What does lying flat mean? Adopting a more passive lifestyle, not buying homes or cars, not getting married, not having children, and in some cases resorting to extreme measures like this one. This young man went to the London School of Economics. Now he's out on the streets of China offering political science consulting services to anyone who can pay. We cannot confirm when or where this picture was taken. It shows the graduate with a placard in Mandarin. And this is what it says: postgraduate from LSE providing political science consulting services, knowledgeable of Russia, Ukraine, modernization theory, populism, identity politics, the neoliberal dilemma. Taxi drivers, 10% discount. Other political science students, 10% extra charge. It's an interesting pitch, you have to say. He may or may not find takers, but he's made it to the news. But not everyone can hustle like this. So some have decided to stay in college. They're choosing to fail their exams. This is according to a survey conducted by a Chinese newspaper. Graduates were asked a simple question. Do you know someone who has delayed their graduation by failing the exam? Do you know what the result was? Nearly 75% of the students replied with a yes. Some students refused to attend classes. Others turned off their phones on the day of the exam. And yet others deliberately flunked the exam. For what joy? To remain in college for one more year, because life after college can be scary and the prospect of a job is dim. Also, China is an extreme case. Its economy has stagnated due to poor policies, and new graduates are paying the price for this. But what about the rest of the world? How does the global job market look? Tough. Do you know how many new jobs will be created this year? Just 3 million. That's an increase of just 1% from 2022. Leading economies are reporting high rates of unemployment, like the Eurozone, France, Italy, Brazil, Turkey, Spain, South Africa. The unemployment rate in all of these places is above 6%. So the jobs crisis is a global story. India too is struggling. The unemployment rate is around 8%, and that's not even the most worrying number. 40% of Indians are below the age of 25. As of December 2022, almost half of them were unemployed. India's population recently surpassed China, so more jobs are an urgent need, not just for the sake of the future of the youth, but also for the social stability of the country. To live is to suffer. This is a famous quote by Friedrich Nietzsche. Many would agree. Now, this suffering can take various forms. But for the Chinese, it often takes the avatar of what they call white people food. Seriously, that's what they have named Western packed lunches, white people food. Plain ingredients like raw vegetables, sliced meats and crackers. The Chinese are trying this food, then letting their innermost emotions run free by roasting the meals, not in the way you'd imagine. They say, this is the lunch of suffering, or this meal shows what it's like to be dead, and this trend is going viral. But is it simply to poke fun, or does it hold a deeper meaning? Our next report tells you.
This is a viral video of a woman on a train in Switzerland. She's eating a bag of lettuce with ham and a packet of mustard. For many, this isn't a big deal, But for the users on Chinese social media, this food is lawless and outrageous, or the lunch of suffering. They claim even a rabbit would kick away this food. This video garnered so much criticism online, it sparked a culinary trend. Now the Chinese, both at home and abroad, are trying white people food. Yes, that's what they're calling it. They're trying Western packed lunch, which is usually eaten in Europe, the US, and Australia. Think veggies, crackers, cold cuts, boiled eggs, and the occasional piece of fruit. After what they call suffering this food, they're letting their inner Gordon Ramsay run wild by going online and expressing their critique on Chinese blogs, and doing so quite unabashedly. One user said he saw a woman buy raw sliced mushrooms, then eat it at the supermarket. He says he was dumbfounded. Another user shared their colleague's lunch. It was baby carrots and spinach, and went on to ask how anyone can be energetic after eating such food. But if you still lack clarity, one TikTok user clearly explained what white people food means. First, it has no spices. Why? The user says it's because the food doesn't prioritize enjoyment. Next, it involves minimal preparation. And lastly, it's eaten at work or school. So once people get back home, they can finally eat so-called normal food and get their life back. The user really didn't mince their words. But why are Chinese people poking fun at Western food? Experts say because they're fascinated. Chinese people are used to labor-intensive food, where cooking involves a lot of different ingredients, like a mix of vegetables, meat, and grains with a bunch of different spices. So while Chinese people are used to an explosion of flavor, eating only crackers, cheese, and ham can seem jarring. But this food roasting session is more than just an online trend. It's a representation of how many people in China are making a shift from elaborate to simple eating, even if they're doing so with grudging acceptance. Why? Because of China's grueling work culture, where most workers follow what's called the 996. It involves working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. It sounds crazy, but 996 is pervasive in the country. Reports say people regularly work more than 300 hours every month, far surpassing legal limits in China. And the result? Apart from the physical and emotional toll of overwork, people lack the time to prepare elaborate meals, or even go out to grab food. So they're trying, albeit with difficulty, to accept simple meals, but also finding humor in the misery. Some say that while this trend may have made them suffer, it also helped them save time, money, and a lot of calories. But many aren't convinced. One commentator said, if such a meal is to extend life, what is the meaning of life?
Meanwhile, in South Asia, there's a major storm, Cyclone Biparjoy. It made landfall yesterday. This was in Western India. Biparjoy is a Bengali word. It means disaster or calamity. Thankfully, in this case, the damage was not as much as it could have been. Although 2 people have died and 23 are injured. This was in the Indian state of Gujarat. But like I said, it could have been much worse. The cyclone is still around, but it's in a reduced state. It's now being classified as a cyclonic storm, the lowest in the 5-category system. It will continue to cause heavy rains, but the wind speeds have reduced, and this has allowed cleanup work to begin. Here's a report.
Yesterday, India and Pakistan were on high alert. A cyclone approached the western Indian state of Gujarat, Cyclone Biparjoy. It made landfall last evening, but its fury was mostly concentrated on trees and infrastructure. That's because authorities were prepared. India had evacuated over 100,000 vulnerable people from Gujarat's coastal regions. Pakistan moved about 82,000 people to safety. And it helped. In India, the loss of life was limited.
2 Two people died before the landfall, which is sad news. However, the preparations for the cyclone proved helpful as there were no casualties after the landfall. At least 24 animals have died and 23 people have sustained injuries, but there has not been any loss of lives after the landfall. The electricity supply has been disrupted in about 1,000 villages.
The two people who died were shepherds. They tried to protect their flock from the rough seas and torrential rains. Sadly, they died trying to save their animals. This was a while before Cyclone Biparjoy made landfall. No deaths have been reported since. However, the cyclone has left a trail of destruction in its wake. Buildings have collapsed, trees have been uprooted, vast swathes of land are flooded, and about 4,600 villages in Gujarat are without electricity. That's due to the cyclone's winds knocking out power lines. The winds also caused a fire at a major port. It caused a stockpile of coal to ignite, sending embers and smoke over the Okha port. But the worst seems to be over, and cleanup operations have begun.
The number of tree falls in Mandvi have risen. Yesterday, only a few small structures collapsed, but judging by the wind speed, the damage might be worse today.
The cyclone hasn't dissipated yet. It's still around, but in a weakened state. Before making landfall, it was categorized as a very severe cyclonic storm. Now it's being labeled a cyclonic storm. The severity has subsided. The wind speeds have reduced, but it'll continue to bring moderate to heavy rains wherever it goes.
Moving northeastward, the cyclone will be centered toward South Rajasthan and North Gujarat on June 16 evening, and it will then weaken and turn into a depression.
And it seems the cyclone mostly affected India. Pakistan was mostly spared. Life there is returning to normal.
By the grace of God, the cyclone has passed and there are no more threats. So people have started fishing again and coming back to normal life. Also, people are coming back to their homes.
The last cyclone to hit this part of South Asia caused about 100 deaths. This was Cyclone Taukte in 2021. A cyclone in 1998 killed over 1,000 according to official figures. It seems this time authorities have learnt from the past and managed to restrict the human cost.
And before we wrap, here's something that I want to share with you. Next week is going to be special. We are going to bring you special episodes of Vantage from the US as we cover Prime Minister Modi's state visit to America. Don't miss that. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Some 2,500 South Korean and American troops took part in joint exercises marking the 70th anniversary of the alliance between the two nations. Swedish climate activists put red handprints on Claude Monet's painting. Tourists in an Australian park were filmed fighting off a feisty kangaroo. And finally, what makes the 16th of June significant? Taking you back in history to the year 1976. When the Soweto uprising took place in South Africa, police brutally attacked thousands of protesting school children, and this incident marked the beginning of the end of the apartheid system. We're leaving you with these images. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday from the US.
F-15K 전투기 편대가 MK-80는 원거리에서 통제하여 은밀하게 적을 타격 시 직접 충돌 및 공중 폭파 등 다양한
är akut. Pandemin var ingenting jämfört med klimatkollapsen. Det som kommer kan vi inte ens föreställa oss. Som sjuksköterska kommer jag kunna ge er någon trygghet. Vi kommer också drabbas av svält, vattenbrist, konflikter.
Helen! This is a lady. That's...